Veteran helps stranded immigrant, but what he doesn't know is that she's running for her life. As danger closes in and enemies track them down, he's forced to put everything on the line to protect her and her little boy. Secrets from her past and his come to light, leading to a shocking moment that will leave you breathless. The late afternoon sun hung low in the Montana sky, casting golden streaks across the empty country road. Sam Larson, a retired veteran with tired eyes and a weathered face, gripped the steering wheel of his beat-up pickup truck. The photo of his best friend, Jake Riley, was clipped to the sun visor above him, a constant reminder of the life he couldn't leave behind. Sam muttered to himself, "Should have gone straight home," as the hum of the truck's engine filled the silence. His days were simple now, running errands, fixing things around his small cabin, and avoiding any unnecessary contact with the world. As he rounded a bend, something unusual caught his attention. A car parked on the shoulder, its hood propped open, steam rising faintly into the cool autumn air. A woman stood next to it, waving both arms frantically. A small boy clutched her leg, holding a stuffed bear tightly to his chest. Sam slowed down but didn't stop immediately. "Not my problem," he muttered, his foot hesitating on the brake. But as he passed, he caught a glimpse of the woman's face. Panic. Desperation. He sighed, gripping the steering wheel tighter before pulling over a few yards ahead. Shutting off the engine, he grabbed his old army jacket from the passenger seat and stepped out, his boots crunching against the gravel. The woman approached cautiously, keeping the boy close to her side. She looked to be in her late 20s, her dark hair pulled back into a messy bun. Her clothes were neat but worn, and her accent hinted at a background far from this quiet Montana town. "Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice trembling but polite. "Our car, it's broken. I don't know what happened." Sam glanced at the car, then back at her. "Pop the hood," he said gruffly, not wasting time on pleasantries. The boy peeked out from behind her legs, his wide eyes fixed on Sam. He couldn't have been more than 7. Sam gave a small nod to the kid but didn't say anything. The woman leaned into the car and pulled the latch. Sam propped up the hood and peered into the engine, his practiced hands brushing over parts. "Radiator's shot," he muttered. "You're not going anywhere in this." Her face fell, and her shoulders sagged. "Oh, no. We need to get to Rockridge. The shelter is expecting us." Sam stiffened. He didn't ask why she was going to a shelter. He wasn't in the business of prying. "Rockridge is 20 miles from here. Closest tow truck's probably in the next county." She bit her lip, clearly holding back tears. The boy tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, what's he saying?" She knelt down to him, whispering something in another language, gentle, reassuring. Sam watched, his gruff exterior softening for just a moment before he shook it off. "Look," he said, his tone reluctant but firm. "I can give you a ride to Rockridge. That's about all I can do." The woman looked at him, her expression a mixture of relief and hesitation. "Are you sure? I don't want to trouble you." "Already pulled over, didn't I?" Sam grumbled. He waved toward the truck. "Grab your things." As Sam helped load a small suitcase into the truck bed, the boy approached him, holding out a crumpled candy bar. "For you," he said, his voice timid but sincere. Sam paused, glancing at the candy before taking it with a faint smile. "Thanks, kid." The boy beamed. In that moment, something shifted in Sam's chest, an unfamiliar warmth he hadn't felt in years. Sam adjusted the rearview mirror, glancing back at Amara and her son, Ayaan, seated quietly in the truck's cabin. Ayaan held his teddy bear close, staring out the window as the landscape rolled by. Amara sat stiffly, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked tired, more than just physically, as if she'd been carrying a heavy weight for far too long. The truck rattled down the uneven road, the silence broken only by the hum of the engine. Sam cleared his throat, unsure why he felt the need to fill the quiet. "You said you're heading to Rockridge. Shelter there?" Amara nodded, her voice soft. "Yes, they're expecting us. We've been on the road for a long time." Sam frowned but didn't press. Her answer was vague, and her tone suggested she didn't want to share more. That suited him just fine. He wasn't in the business of asking personal questions. Ayan, however, wasn't as reserved. "Do you live here, mister?" he asked, his small voice breaking the tension. "Yeah, I live not far from here," Sam replied, glancing at the boy through the mirror. "Just me and my cabin." "Do you have a dog?" Ayan asked eagerly. "Nope," Sam said shortly. "Just me." Amara gently hushed her son, but Sam shook his head. "It's fine," he said, his voice softening. "Kid can ask questions. No harm in that." The boy smiled, his innocence shining through. "Mama says it's nice to ask people about their lives. She says it shows you care." Sam felt a pang in his chest at the boy's words. He hadn't thought much about someone caring in years, let alone what that might feel like. The truck hit a pothole, jostling them slightly. Amara clutched the door handle, her nerves showing for a moment before she composed herself again. "You okay?" Sam asked, his tone flat but with a hint of concern. "Yes," she replied quickly. "Thank you. I don't like driving. We've had to do so much of it lately." Sam wanted to ask more, where she was coming from, why she looked so wary, but he stopped himself. He wasn't here to dig into anyone's life, he was just offering a ride. As they neared a gas station, Sam noticed Amara's eyes flick nervously toward a large truck parked outside. 3 men leaned against it, their eyes narrowing as the battered pickup approached. Amara instinctively turned to shield Ayan with her arm, her body tensing. Sam slowed the truck, his sharp gaze landing on the men before he pulled into the station. He didn't say anything, but his grip on the wheel tightened. "You need to stop here?" he asked Amara. She hesitated before shaking her head. "No, let's keep going." Sam nodded and drove past, but his mind churned. Whoever this woman was, she was scared, and it wasn't just her broken car that had her on edge. The truck rattled along the highway as the last rays of sunlight painted the horizon in soft hues of orange and pink. The silence inside the cabin was heavy, but Sam didn't mind. He'd spent most of his life surrounded by silence, on the battlefield, in his cabin, and in his mind. Amara shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Sam noticed her glance at the rearview mirror, her eyes darting toward the empty road behind them. She was watching for something. Or someone. "You keep looking back," Sam said finally, his voice calm but pointed. "You expecting trouble?" Amara hesitated, her hands tightening in her lap. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "I'm just careful, that's all." Sam didn't buy it, but he let it go. If she didn't want to share, he wasn't going to pry. He had his own past to wrestle with. He didn't need hers added to the mix. The sound of Ayan humming softly in the back seat triggered a memory in Sam's mind. He was back on the battlefield, crouched in the dirt with his best friend, Jake Riley, beside him. They were pinned down by enemy fire, and Jake was cracking a joke to lighten the mood. Sam had laughed, just for a moment, until the explosion ripped through the air. Jake's face was the last thing Sam saw before everything went black. When he woke up in the hospital, they told him Jake hadn't made it. The guilt had eaten at him every day since. Sam blinked, forcing himself back to the present. He gripped the steering wheel harder, his knuckles white. "You okay?" Amara asked suddenly, noticing the tension in his face. "Yeah," Sam muttered. "Fine." As night began to fall, Sam pulled into the parking lot of a small roadside diner. A neon sign flickered above the door, casting a faint glow over the gravel lot. "We'll stop here for a bit," Sam said, cutting the engine. "Get something to eat before we finish the drive." Amara hesitated but nodded, helping Ayan out of the truck. Inside, the diner was nearly empty, save for a few locals sipping coffee and chatting quietly at the counter. They slid into a booth near the window. Amara kept Ayan close, her eyes scanning the room as if expecting danger at any moment. Sam noticed, but didn't comment. "Order whatever you want," Sam said, handing her a menu. "My treat." Amara looked at him, surprised. "You've already done so much. I couldn't—" "Just do it," Sam interrupted gruffly. "Kid looks hungry." Ayan's eyes lit up as he looked at the menu. "Can I get pancakes?" he asked excitedly. "Pancakes at night?" Sam chuckled. "Why not?" For a moment, the tension lifted as Ian began chatting happily about his favorite foods. Sam found himself smiling despite himself. As their food arrived, the bell above the diner door jingled. Sam glanced up and immediately noticed the group that walked in, 3 men in dusty jackets and boots talking loudly. Sam stiffened. One of the men, tall with a scruffy beard, looked their way. His eyes lingered on Amara and Ayan a little too long. Amara noticed too. She quickly turned her attention back to her plate, her movements stiff. "You know them?" Sam asked quietly. "No," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't." But the way she held her fork, her knuckles white, told Sam she was lying. The tall man leaned against the counter, his gaze still fixed on their table. "Haven't seen you folks around here before," he said loudly, his voice carrying across the room. Sam set his fork down slowly and turned to face him. His calm, steady voice cut through the diner. "We're just passing through." The man smirked, but didn't move. The tension in the room was thick, and Sam's instincts kicked in. Trouble wasn't far off. It never was. The diner went quiet, the hum of the overhead lights suddenly louder than before. The tall man, now leaning against the counter with a smirk plastered on his face, kept his eyes fixed on Amara and Ayan. His companions stood behind him, their postures casual but their expressions carrying an edge of menace. Sam shifted in his seat, his military instincts sharpening. He didn't like the way the man looked at them, especially at Amara. "We're just passing through," Sam repeated, his voice calm but firm. The tall man chuckled, a sound that grated like nails on a chalkboard. "Passing through, huh? Ain't often we see folks like you around here." His gaze landed squarely on Amara. Amara tensed, her hand instinctively reaching for Ayan, who was now staring wide-eyed at the scene. "Leave it," Sam said softly, his tone more of a command than a request. He stood slowly, his imposing figure drawing the attention of everyone in the diner. The tall man raised his hands mockingly. "Easy there, old man. Just making conversation." Sam took a step forward, closing the distance between them. His voice dropped, low and steady. "If you've got something to say it. Otherwise, get out of our way." The man's smirk faltered for a moment, but he covered it with a scoff. Big talk for a guy past his prime. Sam didn't flinch. His steely eyes locked on the man, unyielding. "Try me." The tension hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The man's companions exchanged glances, clearly uncertain. The bravado in their leader's smirk began to waver as the room watched him, waiting to see if he'd push further. A sudden sound broke the standoff. The bell above the door jingled again. A waitress, clearly nervous, stepped forward with a coffee pot in hand. "Everything okay here?" she asked, her voice shaky. The tall man looked at her, then back at Sam before letting out a derisive laugh. "Yeah, everything's fine." He grabbed a cup of coffee from the counter and gestured for his friends to follow him to a booth across the room. Sam didn't move until the group was seated and had turned their attention away. Slowly, he returned to the table, where Amara was gripping her fork so tightly her knuckles had gone white. "You all right?" Sam asked, his voice softer now. Amara nodded stiffly but didn't look up. "Thank you," she whispered. Sam didn't respond. He didn't need to. Jan, sensing the unease, broke the silence with his innocent voice. "Mama, can I have more syrup for my pancakes?" Amara blinked, startled out of her fear, and nodded quickly. "Of course, sweetheart." She poured the syrup, her hands trembling slightly. Sam watched her closely. Whatever she was running from, it wasn't just about poverty or misfortune. It was something bigger, and something dangerous. When the meal was done, Sam paid the bill and ushered them quickly out of the diner. He didn't want to linger, especially with those men still sitting inside. As they walked to the truck, Sam noticed Amara glance over her shoulder again. Her fear was palpable, and it only made Sam more determined to get her and Ayan to safety. But as he opened the truck door, a sharp whistle cut through the night air. Sam turned to see the tall man leaning against the diner door, watching them with a crooked grin. "Safe travels," the man called out, his tone laced with mockery. Sam didn't respond. He helped Amara and Ayan into the truck, his eyes never leaving the man. As he started the engine and pulled out of the lot, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that the trouble they'd just avoided was far from over. As they drove away, Amara finally spoke, her voice barely audible. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put you in danger." Sam glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Danger's nothing new to me, but I need to know, what exactly are you running from?" Amara hesitated, looking down at her hands. "It's complicated." Sam's grip on the wheel tightened. "Then you'd better start explaining, because those men back there aren't done with us." The dark road stretched ahead, illuminated only by the truck's headlights. The air inside the cabin felt heavy, the tension unspoken but undeniable. Amara sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the passing trees. Ayaan had fallen asleep in the back seat, his head resting against the window, his teddy bear tucked under his arm. Sam glanced at Amara. "We don't have time for complicated," he said bluntly. "I need to know what's going on. Those men back there didn't just happen to target you." Amara hesitated, her lips trembling. Finally, she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I'm running from a dangerous man," she said quietly. "He's powerful, connected, and he wants us gone." Sam's brow furrowed. "Who is he?" "His name is Victor Salazar," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "He was a government official in my home country. My husband, Adam, worked as a journalist and exposed Victor's corruption. He wrote articles, shared evidence. Adam thought it would make a difference." Sam gripped the wheel tighter. "What happened to your husband?" Amara's eyes filled with tears. "He was killed," she whispered. "They came for him in the middle of the night. We barely escaped. I took Ayaan and ran. We've been moving ever since, but Victor has people everywhere. I don't know how, but they always seem to find us." Sam's jaw tightened as her words sank in. He wasn't surprised. He'd seen men like Victor before, people who used power to crush anyone who stood in their way. But the thought of Amara and Ayaan being hunted like prey made his blood boil. "Why, Rockridge?" Sam asked. "You think it's safe there?" Amara nodded faintly. "There's a shelter that helps refugees. They've promised to help us get legal protection, maybe even asylum. It's the only chance we have." Sam sighed deeply. He hadn't signed up for this, but now he was in it. And leaving them to fend for themselves wasn't something he could do, not with Ayaan asleep in the back seat, trusting him to keep them safe. The truck hummed along the empty highway, the night still and quiet, but Sam's sharp instincts told him something wasn't right. He glanced at the rearview mirror and froze. Headlights. 2 sets of them, closing in fast. "We've got company," Sam said, his voice low but firm. Amara turned sharply, her eyes widening. "No, it can't be." Sam didn't wait for an answer. He pressed the gas pedal, the engine roaring as the truck picked up speed. The headlights behind them matched his pace, closing the gap quickly. "They're not random drivers," Sam said. "They're after you." Amara clutched the edge of her seat, panic etched across her face. "What do we do?" Sam's military training kicked in. His voice was steady, commanding. "Hold on tight." The truck careened down the highway as the pursuing cars gained ground. Sam's hands gripped the wheel tightly as he swerved onto a side road, kicking up dust and gravel. Amara held Ayaan close, whispering prayers under her breath. The boy stirred, but didn't wake, blissfully unaware of the danger surrounding them. The pursuing cars split up, one staying on their tail, the other taking a parallel road to cut them off. Sam gritted his teeth, scanning the terrain for an escape route. "You ever been in a high-speed chase before?" Sam asked, his tone almost casual despite the tension. Amara shook her head, her knuckles white as she gripped the door. "No, have you?" "Once or twice," Sam said, a flicker of dark humor in his eyes. As they approached a narrow bridge, the second car suddenly appeared ahead, blocking the road. The first car closed in from behind, trapping them. Sam slammed on the brakes, bringing the truck to a screeching halt. Dust swirled around them as the 2 cars idled ominously, their engines growling like predators circling prey. 3 men stepped out, their silhouettes menacing in the truck's headlights. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, carried a metal pipe, tapping it against his palm as he approached. "Stay here," Sam said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He grabbed the crowbar from under his seat and stepped out of the truck. Sam stood tall, his figure imposing against the glare of the headlights. The man with the pipe sneered. "You should have minded your business, old man." Sam's grip on the crowbar tightened. "You've got one chance to walk away. Take it." The man laughed, but it was cut short when Sam took a step forward, his voice cold and sharp. "You don't know who you're messing with," Sam growled. The men hesitated, sensing they might have underestimated him, but the tension in the air promised that this standoff was far from over. The cool night air was thick with tension. Sam stood in front of his truck, his grip firm on the crowbar, while the three men circled like vultures. Behind him, Amara huddled in the cab, holding a now-awake Ayan close. The boy's wide, frightened eyes peered out the window, his small hands gripping his mother's arm. The leader of the group, a burly man with a shaved head, sneered as he stepped closer. "This doesn't concern you, old man. Hand them over, and we'll let you go." Sam's eyes didn't waver. "You'll have to go through me first." The man laughed, gesturing to his companions. Tough talk for someone outnumbered. Sam shifted his stance slightly, planting his feet firmly. "I've been outnumbered before. Didn't end well for the other guys." The sneer faded, replaced with uncertainty. The way Sam stood, calm, confident, unflinching, hinted at a man who had seen far worse than this. "Back off now," Sam said, his voice low but commanding. "You've got no idea what you're walking into." The man with the metal pipe lunged forward, swinging it in a wide arc. Sam stepped to the side with practiced precision, slamming the crowbar down on the man's wrist. The pipe clattered to the ground as the man cried out in pain. Before the others could react, Sam turned sharply, raising the crowbar. "Who's next?" The remaining two hesitated, glancing at each other. But the leader growled, "Get him!" They rushed forward together, but Sam was ready. He sidestepped the first man, using his momentum to shove him into the truck. The second man swung wildly, but Sam ducked, delivering a swift blow to his knees. Within moments, two of the men were on the ground groaning, and the leader stood frozen, his confidence shattered. Sam stepped closer to the leader, his face inches away. "Go back to whoever sent you. Tell them if they come after this family again, they'll have me to deal with." The man gulped, nodding quickly before helping his fallen companions back to their car. Without another word, the two vehicles roared away, their headlights disappearing into the distance. Sam stood there for a moment, breathing heavily. Then he turned back to the truck. Amara stepped out, her face pale but determined. "Why did you do that?" she asked softly. Sam shrugged, tossing the crowbar back into the truck. "Seemed like the right thing to do." Her eyes filled with tears. "You risked your life for us. I don't even know how to thank you." Sam leaned against the truck, studying her. "You don't need to thank me. But I need to know, are you safe now, or is this going to keep happening?" Amara wiped her tears, her voice steady despite her fear. "They'll keep coming. Victor Salazar doesn't give up easily." Sam's jaw tightened. "Then we don't wait for them. We make sure they can't find you again." The next morning, Sam drove Amara and Ayan to the shelter in Rockridge. He stayed with them long enough to ensure they were in safe hands. The shelter's director, a kind but firm woman named Martha Green, assured Sam they would provide legal assistance and protection for the family. As they said their goodbyes, Amara reached out, placing a hand on Sam's arm. "You saved us. Not just from them, but from living in fear. I'll never forget what you did." Sam gave her a small smile, his tough exterior softening. "Just keep that boy safe. He deserves a good life." Ayan stepped forward, holding out his teddy bear. "Here," he said shyly. "For you." Sam crouched down, surprised. "You sure about that, kid?" Ayan nodded. "You're my hero." Sam's throat tightened, but he managed a smile. "Thanks, kid. You're pretty tough yourself." Days later, Sam stood at the edge of a small cemetery, holding a single flower. He knelt in front of a simple gravestone engraved with Jake Riley's name. "I finally did something good, Jake," he murmured, "something you would have been proud of." He placed the flower gently on the grave, stood, and looked out at the horizon. For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. As he walked back to his truck, he glanced at the teddy bear sitting on the passenger seat. A faint smile crossed his face. Sometimes, it wasn't about winning a war, it was about saving one life at a time. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to see that kindness can truly change lives. What would you have done in Sam's place? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to see more inspiring stories like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out. Thank you for watching, and remember, one act of kindness can make all the difference.